tonight. So I'm
Oh.
calling. Yes, go ahead, George.
I'm sorry, Carl. The first item, 1135, asks to be pushed back to February's meeting, so we can go straight to number 2, which is Furman Avenue.
Okay, thank you, George. I guess they can't get their act together. I don't know. Anyway. Okay, I'm opening the meeting at 19:03 hours of the Land Use Committee on on January 10th, 2022. And Furman Avenue, you here?
Yes, we are here.
Okay, you got the floor.
Okay, thank you. We're going to share our screen.
Hi, everyone. Can everyone see the screen?
Yeah.
Okay, great. My name is Nora Martins from Ackerman LLP. I'm Land Use Counsel for this project, and we will go through our presentation. We're going to start off with Josh Weissman from JCal Development, just to give a brief introduction to JCal and their other projects before we dive into what we're proposing for 4541 Furman Avenue.
Okay, thank you, Nora. Good evening, everybody. Happy New Year. Thanks for your time and opportunity here to present 4541 Furman Avenue rezoning. My name is Joshua Weissman. I'm the president of development. My partner, Bill Bollinger, is also on the Zoom with us. Bill has been in the Bronx for about 30 years, and I've been working in the Bronx for over 20 years, since 1999. The name of our company is JCal Development Group, and we're located at 55 Bruckner Boulevard, down in the Mott Haven section of the Bronx. We are a real estate development general construction firm. We do both market rate buildings and affordable buildings, mainly in the Bronx. We have done some work in Harlem and in Brooklyn, but our passion and our portfolio is in the borough of the Bronx. This first slide is a rendering of the proposed building at Furman Avenue. This is made up of 2 buildings, a front and back. This one is showing the front on White Plains Road. And we can go to the next slide. Okay, so some of our projects that we've completed most recently range from the left here at 2395 Frederick Douglass Boulevard, which is a 75-unit building with a beautiful brand new supermarket on the ground floor of 7,500 square feet. We'll see some photos of it later. We've also done some 4-story loft-style apartments in the Mott Haven area on the Alexander Avenue corridor. We had a mural painted by Tats Crew, which is in one of our buildings over there that says the Bronx. And on the far right of that slide is a 91-unit building, which we'll see some interior photos later, also in the Mott Haven section of the Bronx. That was completed 3 years ago. Next slide, please. So these are the interior shots of the buildings that we'd seen previously. On Alexander Avenue, we made them like loft-style apartments with 15-foot ceilings, with a mezzanine, beautiful state-of-the-art appliances, Caesar stone countertops, all LED lighting, high-efficiency air conditioning and heat. Our building at 132nd Street has a gym, has a beautiful rooftop lounge that overlooks Manhattan and overlooks the borough as well. And on the right, you see the lobby lounge, which we have also the gym off of that. free Wi-Fi throughout the building. And this is also in Mott Haven. Next slide. This is interior shots of the other building I mentioned on 2395 Frederick Douglass Boulevard in Harlem. Here you could see the finishes on the interior. Again, stainless steel appliances, Caesar stone countertops, all LED lighting, beautiful modern bathroom finishes. And there's a small picture on the right of the supermarket produce section, as well as the deli that serves breakfast, lunch, and dinner in the supermarket. So getting back to Furman Avenue and this building, it is slated to be around 150 units, and we believe it will generate 175 construction jobs and approximately 20 permanent jobs within the commercial, community facility, and building services. As I mentioned before, we are a local Bronx builder. We've been building here for 20 plus years. And throughout that time, we've really established ourselves as using mostly local suppliers, and we try to do mostly local subs. We also have an MWBE mandate, which was 25% on most of these buildings, which we go over very well. How do we do that? One of the ways we do that is we have we reach out to some not-for-profits like Sobro, and we have like a big Zoom call with them before a kickoff or before we send out bid packages. We had one for our job we just broke ground in South Bronx. We had a big Zoom. We had 75 Bronx, Manhattan, and Queens MWBE subs and suppliers on the call, and they were all sent bid packages. Some of them were able to bid, some of them didn't have the insurance requirements, but we have them all now listed in our Rolodex for future projects. As we've done so much work in the Bronx and it benefits us, it benefits the borough, we get our concrete from the Bronx, whether it's from Casa Masonry, Next Gen, Jenna, Melrose. We get electrical supplies from Tremont Electrical, roofing supplies from S&J Roofing. We do all of the hardware for the job sites, like brooms, brushes, garbage bags from Green Hill Hardware in Mott Haven. Tiffany Lumber supplies a lot of the safety supplies for all of our window openings. We get our brick and block from Casa Masonry on Bruckner Boulevard. And on the last job, one of the subs we met was a company called R&L HVAC, who's doing the HVAC of 133 units. So it's good for us, it's good for the borough to keep as much as we can inside of the Bronx. People don't have to take, crazy rides with traffic or get on the go over bridges or tunnels. They're local, it's good for us. Moreover, we also put up on all of our job sites and in our trailer sign-in sheets for us to hire for local laborers. Everyone who gets hired has to have a OSHA card and go through a safety training program, but we try to hire from the neighborhood that we're working in. And that's something that's important too for us, and we have a really good track record of doing that. Next slide. As I showed you those pictures before, I just wanted to focus a little bit about our commercial and retail mix that we have in our buildings. So those smaller buildings on Alexander Avenue and in that neighborhood and in that corridor, we were looking to get more of a smaller mom and pop unique retail mix. So some of our tenants in those buildings include the Lit Bar, which is, believe it or not, was the only bookstore in the entire borough of the Bronx. And the woman who started it was Noel Santos, born and raised in the Bronx. And she's doing unbelievably well. A couple months ago, she had Jennifer Lopez there to do a book reading. She had Carmelo Anthony there a couple months ago. And I don't know if some of you follow her on Instagram, but She's doing unbelievably well. We have Bistro, which is a hip hop themed restaurant. These guys are incredible. It's and Alfredo Ongera. They're Bronx guys. They own the Bronx Draft House. They own Bistro. They own another bar down in Mott Haven. They're doing incredibly well. They also, throughout the pandemic, did meals out of this kitchen. Even though the restaurant was closed, they did meals for all the first responders in the Bronx during the entire pandemic. These guys are amazing. We also have a deli because the neighborhood.
Hold on. Josh, hold on one sec. This is important for my community board to know. For all my board members, Alfredo Ongera, you should know, is the son of Carmen Rosa, who is the former district manager for our community board. Now, that's neither here nor there, but it is important because we love Alfredo and we want to see him prosper because he is a son of the Bronx. He's particularly our son. He was born and raised in this district, he doesn't live in the district anymore, but, you know, we're happy for him. We want him to continue to do well. Go ahead, Josh. Sorry.
No problem. Their office is in our building. They actually just they just bought another place down in Mott Haven that they're going to do another very cool breakfast, lunch, and dinner restaurant. So yeah, those guys are doing really well. Great tenants and good friends as well. What I was saying, like one of our stores we had vacant there, and we were approached to open up a State Farm insurance office. But we really believe that this corridor needed a little more life and it needed something else. So it was desperate for a deli. So we held out. We finally found a deli operator. And in that third vacant spot, we waited and waited and we got a deli. And he's doing unbelievably well. And the neighborhood is serviced by something that it desperately needed. What else do we have there? We have a really cool pizza and pasta and salad, one of those corner buildings as well there too. And in some of our larger buildings like Frederick Douglass Boulevard and some of our other buildings in the Bronx, we have a wide array of commercial tenants. So we're able to see what's needed in the community, see what's the best fit for the building, and, you know, switch and move to see what needs to be done. Like we have a blank gym, we have a large laundromat, we have multiple daycares, we have urgent care, we have a Fresenius dialysis center in one of our buildings, Family Dollars we have, so depending on the mix and what's needed, we have our hands on a lot of different retail guys that we could call in to look at it. And just lastly about retail, and just so it's something interesting, it's like, even if we didn't have space, like in Mott Haven, for instance, we were leased up, but a broker called us about this really cool place called Choco Bar Cortez. And it's this really cool, very well-known Puerto Rican family. They wanted to open up in Harlem and they just couldn't find the right spot. So a broker reached out to me and I said, look, I don't have a place, but next door to me, next to Bistro, is a beautiful brand new space. I hooked them up with the owner and they just opened up in the neighborhood. It is such a cool place. It's getting amazing press. And again, it's great for the Bronx to see that happening, right? And real businesses coming in there, and there's a need for it, there's a want for it, and it's really good to see that what's happened on this Alexander Avenue corridor. I think that's it for my presentation. I'll send it over to Nora to talk more about this site and the specifics.
Thank you, Josh, for that introduction. I think, so just to orient everyone, I know that we met a few months ago to introduce the committee to this project and to this site, but just as a refresher, the development site is located, has frontage on White Plains Road and on Furman Avenue. You can see it here outlined in red. It's adjacent, you can see also adjacent to the elevated train line that runs along White Plains Road. It's not actually next to the station. The station is, you can see, one block to the north, but it is adjacent to the elevated rail. This map shows the existing and proposed zoning districts that we're proposing. Again, in red is outlined as the development site. on the block. We're seeking actually to rezone about 2/3 of the block, extending from East 240th Street south. Basically extending, and the board may remember, 2019, the 241st Street rezoning was approved, which rezoned the entire block to the north of 240th Street, up to 241st Street, with an R7D zoning district and a C24 commercial overlay. We're seeking to essentially pull down that same zoning district to cover 2/3 of the block. The remaining third of the block that we are not including in the rezoning is part of the ramp to the MTA yards that are located to the east. But essentially, this will complete that commercial corridor that you have there along White Plains Road. A lot of these sites have been underutilized for years, despite the real potential for White Plains Road here to be a really active corridor and to also provide housing. So the rezoning will accomplish that on the site, and we'll speak more specifically to the exact details of the project in just a moment. These are the existing conditions at the development site. It's a 1-story warehouse building with frontage on Furman Avenue and on White Plains Road. It's been there since the 1950s, vacant generally for the last few years. I think, though, that you do have a tenant there now storing something, right, Josh?
Right, storing doors.
Right, but essentially a temporary use until the site can be redeveloped. You can see on the bottom photos, the White Plains Road frontage, there's such a significant grade change that it looks almost like a vacant parcel from White Plains Road. And then the site drops down to Furman Avenue, and you can see there the 1-story warehouse building. In order to facilitate the development, which Josh mentioned, is it's a mixed use, would be a mixed use development. As proposed, would be about 150 dwelling units with commercial and community facility on the ground floor. We're seeking 3 land use actions, which are before the board. The first is a zoning map amendment, as I mentioned, to change the existing M11 zoning district to an R7D, and R7D with C24 overlay district on the portion of block 5084. And the commercial overlay would only be mapped along White Plains Road. Furman Avenue, due to the adjacency, the grade change and the adjacency to the yard, is not an ideal location for commercial use, but we are proposing to put community facility use on that frontage. The C24 overlay combined with the R7D mandates commercial ground floor. So we didn't want to have a situation where there was mandated retail on Furman Avenue that would remain vacant if it was difficult to tenant. And then in addition to the zoning map amendment, we're seeking a zoning text amendment to establish a mandatory inclusionary housing area, option 1, and a text amendment to expand the transit zone to include the block. This zoning change map just illustrates those zoning changes I just mentioned. You have on the left the existing zoning map showing the M11 zoning district that currently is established on the entirety of the block. And the map on the right shows the proposed zoning district extending that R7D south and mapping a C24 commercial overlay along White Plains Road. This graphic just illustrates how the proposed rezoning, particularly the extension of the commercial district, would help to really continue that White Plains Road commercial corridor, especially between the 2 subway stations and located to the north and to the south. These photos show some existing commercial. I mean, there are several commercial establishments located along White Plains Road, but with the proposed redevelopment, as well as the development to the north, that I believe it's, has it broken ground? And
Not yet.
Not yet.
Right, but will be coming online along with some other developments in the area. There will be new dwelling units and residents in this area, and it's a real opportunity to really enhance the commercial offerings and the retail possibilities like Josh mentioned earlier. Getting to our proposed development would be a 10-story mixed-use building with 2 segments. 136,544 square feet of floor area, which is a 5.5 FAR, just under the maximum of 5.6 that's permitted in the proposed zoning district. 129,000 square feet of that would be residential floor area, which would result in approximately 150 dwelling units, which are proposed currently to be income restricted. The program is still to be defined based on what's available at the time, but we'd be seeking to serve a range of incomes that based on local AMI levels in the neighborhood. The unit breakdown would be 23% studios, 35, which would be about 35 based on 150 units, 44% one bedrooms, which would be 66, and then 32 two bedrooms, 21%, and 17 three bedrooms, 11%, for a total of 33%, or a third of the units would be 2 and 3 bedrooms. And 38 of the dwelling units would be permanently affordable pursuant to the mandatory inclusionary housing programs. Option 1, which requires 25% of the units to be affordable to households with an AMI averaging 60% or less. We've proposed 22 parking spaces, although none are required. None would be required. And I know when we met with the community board last, parking was a concern. So we took a look at that, and those 22 spaces could be increased to 46 spaces with attended parking and the use of stackers. So that is something that the development team has taken a look at in response to the community board's feedback there. And then community facility, as I noted, we're proposing approximately 11,000 square feet of community facility on Furman Avenue, and then about 7,000 square feet of retail on White Plains Road. This is a site plan showing, bird's eye view of the building. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but here you have White Plains Road. So you have the one building segment fronting on White Plains Road, and then you have an outdoor recreation area on the rooftop in between. And then you have here the second building segment fronting on Furman Avenue, and that building segment, those units also have access to an outdoor recreation area over the cellar roof. The section diagram shows the building segments. You can also see it illustrates the proximity to the elevated train along White Plains Road, and also the grade change that results in the different levels, having the cellar and first floor at different elevations. So here you have the first floor on White Plains Road, which would be occupied by commercial retail uses. And then here you have the cellar and ground floor on Furman Avenue. That would be a community facility, and then parking. Some renderings. This is a rendering from Furman Avenue. From White Plains Road. You can see the elevated train here, showing it's been designed to really enhance the commercial component of the ground floor with transparency and lighting. And then here's a rendering showing the entire development from looking from the south to the north. This is the Furman Avenue frontage, and then behind that is the White Plains Road building segment. And to the north in orange is just a massing illustrating the potential development resulting from the 241st Street rezoning should be coming up soon. That concludes our presentation. I'm sure there are questions, and we have our team here available to answer.
Yes, I have a question. I'm the chair of the Land Use Committee, and I appreciate you trying to increase the parking area, but that doesn't cut it. We need more parking. If you look at Furman Avenue now, they're double parked all times of the day, as is White Plains Road. So I don't see where 41 spots for 115 units is going to make any difference, because the parking is horrendous there. It's dangerous for people to cross, especially Furman Avenue, because the guys are trying to whip around so they can get to the other side before the car coming in a reverse direction can get through. We need more parking. I am very sorry, but I can't support your project without more parking.
But we appreciate that feedback and we do understand that concern. You know, the project is located just a few minutes walking from 2 different subway stations served by 2 different subway lines, the 2 and the 5 trains. And, you know, as we are contemplating this project as an affordable housing development, you know, the ability to provide a more increased amount of parking is limited.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work for us.
Um,
It really doesn't, because we have a big issue with that. It's nice to have a train station, a couple of blocks either direction, but how many people are going to take the train? Even if they do take the train to work, and the weekends they want to go away somewhere, they need a vehicle, so they're going to park their vehicle somewhere. And it doesn't work. 115 units with 41 spots? Definitely not. And I know what the deal was made with the city on affordable housing. If it's close to a transit facility, you don't have to provide parking. But, you know, the people that put that together wasn't the brightest people, because people use vehicles. We are a car-driven society. And especially what's going on with the health care, the coronavirus, and the crime in the subway, people would choose to take their vehicle to work if they didn't work from home. And, you know, I just can't see it working for the benefit of the community. All the stuff you do is very good. I mean, there's no question you guys really put a big effort behind this, but it still does not work for this community.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we can continue to look at additional ways to get more parking, but we can't dig down any deeper. Just based on the geotechnical review that we believe we'll have there. You don't want to lose units, I think, for parking either. We thought putting stackers in and having the attended parking would get us where 46. You know, we'll continue to look, but I don't know how much more we'll be able to get.
Before we take Dr. Burke's question, just a little housekeeping matter. We have 2 persons attending with cell phones 347, one ending in 81 and one in 17. Can they identify themselves, please?
Hi, I'm Deborah Gall in Toronto.
And you're with what phone number ending? What's your phone number?
1527.
You're 1527, and we have someone with last 2 digits 17. Who's 17? Okay, and 81. Not hearing from 17. Whose phone number starts with 347 and ends in 81. All right, Dr. Burke, go ahead with your question, please.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Before I ask my question, I don't know if there are any other questions or any other hands up. I just want to ask, Mr. Is that Weissman? Is that how you say your last name?
Yes.
So are you I take it you're the owner of the property, correct?
We are, yes.
Okay. So I have a question for you, and I was thinking about this. So, you know, just to echo what Mr. Stricker said, you know, there was someone that was shot, I want to say at the Bronx Park East subway station today. I want to say around maybe 3 or 5 o'clock, 5 o'clock, something like that. So someone was actually shot. I want to say 81-year-old man was shot on the subway today. And this is in the era of the Omicron variant. So that's just, you know, something to take note of as well. So when we think about this, so let me ask you this question. I think I would just say this. I can only speak for me. And in looking at some of the things that I've seen, I know where, as a de facto member of this, or where I'm going to vote on your application. But I want to ask you a question, because we kind of knew you were coming before us for quite some time. And so what we did was, we went to, actually, and I forgot that this was actually in Councilman Denowitz's district. At the time that you came to us, it was Councilman Cohen. But, I actually forgot to mention this to his team when I saw them in December. But, one of the things that we did was we looked at, by the way, my name is Dr. Michael Burke, and I'm chairman of Community Board 12. We looked at some things that we would like to actually see. And so we polled members of the board as to what we would like to see instead of housing. And the reason that we said it is because we're not against housing. I think one of your projects that you guys came to us with, I want to say back in October, was a project in which you're actually building houses. And I think we are supportive of that. And I forgot the lady's name, Sandra somebody or another. I forget her last name.
Mhm.
But I say all that to say that, as we said, you giveth and taketh away. And so what the site that you have, board members and members of the community saw other ideas that I think would be better for us, because quite frankly, we're tired of affordable housing. We want, it's one thing I said, if we do housing, we want more upscale housing, and that's not what you're proposing. So at that site, in particular, there are things that we would want to see. For instance, a hydroponic farm. Why would that be beneficial to Community Board 12? One of the things that we're trying to do is improve our health outcomes as far as healthy eating. Some of the things that we're looking at is improving. I won't say we're a food desert, but we're definitely not a food oasis. So a hydroponics farm would be actually ideal for that particular site. And of course, doing some of the math, I know that it works. Another idea from another board member said that would be an excellent site for a training school or an extension of a college. And in particular, you have the MTA that is right there off of that subway line. That's where their rail yard is. And so if you think about it, one of the things that we're trying to promote is home ownership in this community board district. And so both, I know Councilman Raleigh and both Councilman Denowitz will probably agree with that, is what we're trying to promote is more home ownership, not more apartment rentals. And so to that end, if we had a training school in particular for the MTA, which is right there, if you could actually work out something with them, then of course you're creating a high income job, okay, with the people that work there, that get that training, that work at the MTA, then of course that can buy a house. And so I think that is something that, would be more amenable to some of the board members. Another idea that came from another board member was, of course, was a microbrewery. You know what I mean? So, I know that you mentioned your commercial development. That is great. And we would rather a microbrewery. And I know that the MIH program is a legacy of Mayor de Blasio, and think of what you will about him. I think that program is my personal opinion is I'm not a fan of it, but what I want to do is present to you some of the ideas that board members came with. And so something that I would like for you to consider. And so again, I'm going to be quiet, but just if you consider those options that board members have sent, and community members as well have sent to me and this committee, I would be appreciated by you. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bork. Mr. Torres?
Hey, thank you, Harry. All right, so I guess I think we should really try to clear up some stuff here. These folks are coming to us because city planning just certified last week, I think, or maybe even, I think Thursday or Friday, they certified the ULURP for this application. They've come to us before. We know that they're coming. They're requesting a rezoning of this whole block. They spoke to the project that we did a block north of this. I forget what corner it is, but the old Getty gas station, which is the Enclave project, we were supportive of it. Very similar this project. I'm not going to say that we don't need parking, but HPD can tell you that a lot of the parking sits vacant even if they build it. And therefore, they then start leasing it out to people from anywhere. Now, this is an M1 district. Just south of this district, or south of this project, is another M1 district. So when we did Enclave, if you recall properly, Councilmember Cohen wanted to rezone all 3 blocks, and they didn't do it. I don't know why city planning said no, but city planning would not go forward. And we had meetings about the Enclave project that our chair, Carl Stricker, was a part of when, with the former chair, Bill Hall. Again, we were very supportive of that project. And one of the reasons we were supportive of that project is because this is an M11 district. If you guys are not tuned into what's happening, is they're building homeless shelters in M11 districts. We just got 2. Guess where one of them is going? Right to the block south of this, because it is in a M1 district. Had Cohen and city planning rezoned this back when we did Enclave, they would have never put the homeless shelter there, because you can't build homeless shelters in M1 districts. So again, we're in a situation now where we have these empty warehouses and people are looking to deal with the homeless population. And while this may not be ideal to some of us, this is a project that by all means looks very nice. It's going to fit in the same context of what we've already done. Every council member, now we have a brand new council, so it's not fair to tag them with this, but in the previous council, they did rezone most of White Plains Road. This section, which was north of the rezoning, didn't benefit from that rezoning, is my understanding. So that is why they're also coming to us for this. Now, again, we were supportive of, if I recall properly from our first meeting, we were supportive of this project. Now we're, saying we want other things. I shied away from sending emails earlier. We should not be in the situation of recommending things that Dr. Burke is proposing. For example, the hydroponic farm. If you recall, we had a conversation about the pear tree facility where the hydroponic farm was first suggested on the rooftop of the storage facility. And if I'm not mistaken, again, I'm sorry, Dr. Burke, but it wasn't well received by the community. So, the idea that you say that this is well received, we're a community.
You're back.
All right. Yeah, sorry, it was weird. So again, we need to be careful about the things that we recommend and the things that we can and cannot do. They're coming to a rezoning. Now, I understand this project itself is coming for the rezoning, but this benefits the rest of the block as well. There are other people other property owners who will benefit from this as well, this rezoning. So again, that's something that we need to take into consideration, because if we don't move on this, just like we didn't move on the facility, the golf course, it is now going to remain vacant and unused probably for another 10 years. That was a project, again, that we supported. And generally speaking, we've always been very supportive. The one question that I have, because this has always been a point of contention for the board, Dr. Burke spoke a little bit about bringing, upscale housing or stuff like that. What are the rent rolls for this housing? What do you guys consider affordable? Because when Ursula and I talk about affordability, it's usually higher than, I think that what Dr. Burke is asking for is actually what you guys are proposing. But again, what are the rent rolls so that we have an idea of what it is that you're talking about? For example, a 3-bedroom versus a studio.
Sure. And that's actually a very good point, because I think there's sometimes misconceptions of what affordable housing is. So for instance, we have approximately well, again, it's to be determined, but on our upper income bands for a 3-bedroom would go for $2,500 and a studio would go for $1,300. So, and honestly, I checked, that's slightly above market even from what my experience was. But just kind of doing a cursory market overview of the neighborhood. So that's kind of where that fell. And ranges from incomes would range from, so on the lower end, you'd have units that would be at lower income bands of, let's say, for a studio at the lowest end would be $400, and for a 3-bedroom at the lower end would be $722. And you're talking about families' incomes that range from $32,000 on the low end to $95,000 on the upper end. So those would be kind of the income bands. And I believe when city planning did their they talked about that's area median income in general for New York City. So that's kind of the difference.
Okay. And just so board members understand, I live in Co-op City. A 3-bedroom, the biggest apartment is a 6.5 room apartment, which comes with comes with a balcony. We pay way less than that. So again, I don't know if you're assigning the quality of the type of individual to what they pay in rent. These folks will be paying more than I pay. And I think I'm pretty upstanding. So, again, I think we need to make choices, and I understand the vote, and I understand Carl's point, and I understand Doctor's point, but I also, want to stop the misinformation and make sure that people fully understand and grasp what's happening. White Plains Road is never, ever going to be for private homes. So we should understand that. You hardly see that now, and you're not going to see it. 20 years from now, White Plains Road is not going to look or have private homes. This is a pretty nice thing that's here, and we have a choice to make. Now, for my board members, I think some of the questions that we should be asking, for example, is the amenities that are going to be offered and having a conversation about that. For example, you guys are right on the subway line. Are these windows soundproof, for example? Are they going to be waking up? Am I going to get noise complaints from these future tenants because, they live 10 feet away from, the subway?
No, so being a rezoning, there will be a little E designation for sound. And
Okay.
these windows have to be, I think it was 39 dBA
37.
sound attentive windows, which are like thick, big windows. They close with a big casement handle, very soundproof. And not only the windows are going to be very sound effective, but the envelope of the building between the thermal insulation and sound insulation, both on the outside, in between the brick and the block, and on the inside between the block and the sheetrock, will be fully insulated. And each apartment between each apartments is sound insulated.
Right. As part of, just to add to what Josh said, we did a full environmental review prior to this application being certified, and that it did include noise studies to make sure there would be no adverse impacts on residents from the elevated train line or from any of the surrounding uses.
Alfredo?
Good evening, guys. Thank you, Harry and Carl, for letting me speak. In regards to this project, like George mentions, beautiful project, beautiful building, nice design. We get that. Couple of things. This is a M1-1 district right now as it stands. Unfortunately, there's not much that can be built in an M1-1 unless we're going to be building cars or electrical parts or stuff like that. Unfortunately, we don't have those type of tenants no more. They left the city a long time ago. Housing is always good. It brings up the neighborhood. My issues, parking, as in any other development that goes up in Community Board 12, the parking. I know you showed elevations of White Plains Road, but I didn't see the elevations on Furman towards the entrance of the parking space. There's a development north from you that I think they're gonna be breaking ground, I think soon, from what I heard. and they're going to be building parking, and their parking entrance is also going to be on Furman. So we're going to have the entrance to the parking for the corner building on 241st. We got the entrance or the exit to McDonald's. We got the entrance and exit to the MTA spaces. So there's going to be a lot of coming in and out from a lot of these vehicles. So that's one issue, being that on a regular day, that Furman Avenue corridor is very busy with cars going from 241st to the other block. In regards to the actual prices of the rent, I mean, I never understood the affordability when developers come and say it's affordable. 2,500, I don't see how that is affordable. I paid 2,800 mortgage for a 2-family house up here on a 40 by 100 lot, and it's 2,800 for a legal 2-family, and it's mine. So I don't see, and I'm trying to bring nobody down, who up here could pay $2,500 rent. Now, one thing I didn't hear, are you guys going to be taking programs for these apartments, Section 8 or any other of these governmental programs to offset the prices? Like, I mean, again, I don't see who has $2,500 to pay for a 3-bedroom apartment in the Northeast Bronx. Now, if you could convert this project into co-ops or condos that people could actually try to buy them, you know what I mean? Then that makes more sense, because then someone will actually own the units. There's a big development just happened on 233rd Street by another developer. I'm not going to mention no names. Big building, big development on the corner. Beautiful building. It's been empty. Literally, it's been empty for the past year. Beautiful building, maybe over 100 and something apartments. Parking, everything, empty. The building is completely empty for whatever reason. I don't know why, but it's been empty. So, I mean, again, do we need more housing? Of course we do. I think more ownership housing makes more sense. And Mr. Weissman, I think I met you before. I know Ray and Alfred. I do expediting for them. You got some nice properties over there in the hub.
Thank you.
I think, Bill, maybe you can respond. I think
Yeah, let me just say this
there's
about.
a range of rents, and so there will be units available for less than 2,500.
Correct. I was just showing in context. I think Mr. Torres was talking about the context of the rentals. But again, studios we have starting at 419, 1-bedrooms at 532, 2 bedrooms at 631, and 3 bedrooms at $722. So and part of that is trying to get a range of folks, like, workforce housing. So everything's kind of geared towards income bands and stuff like that. So you can't make too much, but you also have to, no one wants people to be rent burdened as well. So there's a whole mix from the lower to higher.
Ms. Benitez? Judith Benitez. You have a question?
Yeah, in reference to the amenities for that building, will you be having security cameras? Will you have security company patrolling that building or buildings? And also, as far as what's going into the apartments, what type of equipment is going into the kitchen? Is that going to be fully furnished as far as the kitchen is concerned?
Sure. So the kitchens will all have.
Hey, Josh, let me interrupt you for a second. If you could just, if who's ever controlling the screen could go back to Frederick Douglass, you'll see exactly what's going to go into there. No, Frederick Douglass. There you go.
Yeah. Okay. So that's in the center there. That's a kitchen that we just completed in Harlem, West Harlem. You see, you have a stainless steel refrigerator. You have a undermount sink. You have a dishwasher, and this building will also have an electric stove because they're phasing out gas now in the city of New York. So that'll be an electric stove, look very similar to that. Those kitchens are like standard JCal design. We think it really looks modern and fresh, and it works well for us and works well for the tenants. All the lighting in every apartment, in all the corridors, are all LED lighting. So that brings the cost down of electric, and also you don't have to replace bulbs for like 30,000 hours. There's a range hood above the stove as well. So you can see it's a very nice looking, fresh looking, stylish and usable kitchen.
Will there be a laundry room also?
Yeah, so we have a laundry room in the building as well. And that's activated with like a key fob. We have bicycle storage in the building. We have, as you saw on the rendering, we have the tenant's lounge, which is inside and then goes outside to the setback. We possibly will have a fitness center in this building as well. Bicycle room, package room. And you asked about cameras. Yes, we put cameras in the stairwells, all of the common areas, and obviously on the sidewalks, lobby, all have cameras, CCTV equipped.
And the other thing we would likely do here that we did in Frederick Douglass is we had a quiet room for students to go and they can log on to the internet. And that was particularly helpful given all this remote distance learning that's went on. It was very helpful for them to be able to get out of their apartments with, everybody's crowded in there and go into a quiet room.
So you will not have any security personnel on site?
No, on site you'll have a live-in super and probably 2 porters.
What's an Estes?
I think there was a question in the
Oh, was
chat.
that a question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think Deborah has a question.
I'm sorry, my hand auto typed. Is there an area for children?
So we had that study room. We don't have like a dedicated like child's room, but the outside area, if you want to go back to the rendering, you guys can show, if you go back, the green space between the 2 buildings, we could consider doing some type of little like play area or something there, to the left of the outdoor recreation. You could see how much green space we're going to try to provide in the back there.
George?
Oh,
I'm sorry, so
Yeah.
one more question. I'm sorry. So for the rooftop, will there be any type of gardening or solar panels or anything like that?
Yes. So on the upper floors, the top floors will have solar panels.
okay. That was part of my question. Are you subject to the new council law about electric stoves, or is that way off in the future?
Yes,
I-
this will be subject to that.
Yeah.
So you have to put electric stoves in?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Is there any other component of that law that we should be aware of besides electric? Like, does that mean you have to be? I mean, I know you have to be. I guess you're trying to be a green building by having solar panels and everything like that. But how efficient will the building be? Like once it's built, every building gets rated now. What's your
Yeah.
rating you think going to be?
So before we even can sheetrock the apartments, we have to do what's called a blower door test to make sure there's no like air leaving that we don't want to be leaving. So all the air will be circulated through our fans and through trickle vents on the window, through the fans and through the air conditioning system. So they're very well sealed units. And as I mentioned, all LED lighting. If we do have gas heating, which I'm not sure if this building will have because of that law, it's very high efficient. But just going back to your stoves, it's funny, in all of our buildings that we built, we've done gas stoves. But down in Mott Haven, where some of these new buildings are going up now, they're doing all electric stoves. And we went to see them, and you wouldn't know they're electric. They're beautiful, and they're really high efficient in, in burn rates and whatnot. So I think it's a good thing that it's going there.
And this would be subject and comply with enterprise green communities. As far as the efficiency standards and materials, low VOCs and things of that nature into the building.
You said something, Josh, and this will be my last question in regards to the building will be sealed, especially in light of what we've been experiencing for the last 2.5 years, 3 years with COVID and all this other stuff. Is that the way it's supposed to be? Like, is that the direction that the city wants us to start designing these buildings so that, is there better circulation that way? Or I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not an expert on these things.
Yeah, so they're meaning like you're not having air leave or come in that you're not controlling. So all of the air going in and out of of your apartments is like controlled air, tempered air, controlled air. You're getting fresh air into the units, you're getting fresh air into the hallways, and you're releasing the other air. So yes, it's designed that way.
Josh, there's a question in the chat. If you could respond to it, please.
About central air versus.
Will there be centralized AC? So
But they just,
each unit will have its own controlled air conditioning. And each unit will have its own heating thermostat. So, you want it to be 70 degrees, or if you're like my wife and you want it at 65 degrees, you could do it that way.
Thank you. And we have Dr. Burke again.
I just want to say again, whatever happens, I think because the board, I think if I'm not mistaken, we have to vote on this because it's been certified, right? So we have to vote on a recommendation to send. I know we have to do a public hearing too, but I'm make sure I understand the rules. We have to vote on this tonight, correct? Okay. All right, then whatever the board decides is fine by me. Just one correction though. Go back to January of 2021, and the hydroponics was actually well received. So I just want to make that correction. But other than that, whatever the board side, actually the committee, is fine by me.
To Dr. Burke's point, he's actually right. We have to have a conversation about scheduling a public hearing. So we can have the 1930 conversation. Well, we can have a vote so that we can make a recommendation to send it to public hearing and to the full board for a vote. But we have to have a public hearing. In the past, we've done it the same day as the full board meeting because for a public meeting, you need a quorum of board members. So that means, we have 46 now board members, or maybe 45. We have to have a quorum of them. So we usually try to do it the same day. But again, we can have that conversation after we have the conversation about 1930 AD Avenue.
Hey, Carl, back to you.
Yes. Is there any more questions? If not being any, if there is no further questions, I would close this part of the hearing at 20:01. So 43, 40, 45, 41 Furman Avenue, the hearing is, for the Land Use Committee is closed. And we'll take a vote at the end of after hearing all the issues on the other properties. So now we can go to 1930 AD Avenue. Are the people there?
Yes, good evening. Richard Lobel of Sheldon Lobel, PC. We have the whole applicant team here, and we'd be happy to present on 1938.
Can you make your presentation, please?
Sure. Amanda Iannotti of my office is sharing her screen. I'm joined tonight by Michael and Ron Gilbert, who are the project applicants, as well as Kevin Williams of Equity Environmental, Sebastian D'Alessandro, who is the project architect. I believe that also, the last time I checked on the phone, Dr. Clark Ramsey was on the phone, who is the executive director at St. Jemuel Group Daycare, who would be benefiting from this. So let me just start. This is the 1930 80 Avenue rezoning. Next slide. So what we're seeking here from the board is very minor. It's a zoning map amendment to rezone 4 parcels on 80 and Grace Avenues from the existing R4 district to an R6B zoning district, which would really allow for, if anyone's familiar with 1930 80 Avenue, which we will show you momentarily, the building that's there right now is the exact building that would be standing after the rezoning, with the exception of a lowering of a portion of the second story. So while in most cases when we come to the board for rezoning, we're asking for additional development here, we've got the existing building, which will actually get somewhat smaller. What you see is what you get. In addition to that, the rezoning would, of course, require a text amendment to the mandatory inclusionary housing provisions, which would result in mandatory inclusionary housing being mapped on this area. And we can discuss that more as well. Next slide. So this project would allow for the legalization and development of this 2-story building at 1930 80 Avenue as a use group 3 community facility with preschool and daycare, which will be discussed later. It's an existing approximately 14,264 square foot building, which would remain. Interestingly, under both the existing district, the R4 district, and the proposed R6B district, the floor area is exactly the same. In both instances, you get 14,000 square feet. The difference, of course, is that this building was built predating the zoning resolution. So
Richard, you went mute.
We lose them, George?
hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good. Not sure what happened. So, so the building at the time it was built in 1963 was an existing manufacturing building for metal products with accessory parking. So it was existing and legal in 1963. Between 1987 and 1995, there were additions made to the building which violated yard requirements. So what the rezoning from R4 to R6B would do would merely be to legalize that existing building, would allow it to continue and to be used for St. Jemuel, as will be discussed further. The applicant here would be occupied, as said, by St. Jemuel Group Family Daycare, which has been serving the Fordham Bronx Park community for the past 17 years. And extending their services here would provide additional education and social programs, as can be discussed later by Dr. Clark Ramsey. Next slide. So this is a zoning map which shows you in the circled area the site, which, as you can see, is within an R4 district. Next slide. The proposal would merely change that to this R6B. Again, for purposes of community facility, it would result in the same floor area ratio. There will also be 3 additional sites included to the east of the site. Those are all built between a 1.09 and 1.65 FAR. So those are already overbuilt for the existing R4. This would have the effect of making those complying buildings as well. So it would kind of have an added benefit in that regard. Next slide. This is kind of a larger land use map showing you the area. Of course, we are adjacent to the New England Thruway. Across from us is an R6 district across the Thruway. And basically 80 Avenue here is an 80-foot wide street. Despite the fact that there would not be any additional development at the site, it is well suited to handle an R6B zoning district. Next slide. So the next several slides show pictures of the surrounding site. You could see the facility itself in the foreground. Amanda, you can feel free to page through the slides. We show buildings along Grace Avenue as well as 80 Avenue. Again, happy to discuss any of the current circumstances around the building. And then if you page through all the pictures, you get to the plans and materials. And this merely shows the existing building, which is a 2-story community facility space. We can pose questions to the architect, but I would note on the second page of the plans, you can see an area. If you look at the bottom left of that plan, you can see an area which says 2-story, height decreased to 23 feet. That basically is the, thank you, Amanda. That basically is the portion of the building where the ceiling will be lowered by 2 feet, which would allow that square footage to come off of lot coverage calculations and would make the building conform to R6B zoning. So again, no additional to the site. The existing building is as it is, with the exception of that small corner, which will go from a height of 25 feet down to 23 feet. The plans and materials that follow show the layout of the classrooms. The intention would be for roughly 5 classrooms, for what I understand would be 3 and 4K. There would be, within, I think, 12 to 20 kids on the classroom, depending on the size of the individual classroom and the class. And then the final plans and materials show a rendering of the property with the signage of St. Gemuel there, as well as on the last page are other daycare developments which have been built by the applicants. So Amanda, if you want to go back to the rendering, with that, I would ask whether or not Dr. Clark Ramsey is on the phone, and if so, I know that there were some additional materials which she was hopeful to show you with regards to the daycare scene. Not sure whether or not she is on. Still, I know she was on prior to. Oh, I think I see her, but I'm not sure if she is able to unmute. We may have lost her after the first proposal. So I think with that, and if Dr. Clark is available, she can just, oh, all right, can you speak? You know what, Amanda, maybe why don't you put up the presentation for St. Gemuel? I know it's only a few pages. Hi, Dr. Clark.
She's unmuted, but she seems to have trouble with her microphone. It's not, she's talking, but it's not coming through.
Okay, so I think the presentation is only 5 pages. I would just quickly run through it. Next slide, Amanda. So this is St. Gemuel, which is a worthwhile and established local organization guided by a commitment to providing caring and supportive multicultural environment that encourages, motivates, and gives students the opportunity to explore, learn, and succeed emotionally, physically, cognitively, and intellectually. The mission is that they will collaborate with parents, staff, and community to teach academic, social, emotional, and problem-solving skills so that students can succeed in the 21st century and beyond. This is exemplified through hope to students and families through hard work, preparation, and equality in a holistic manner. With regards to the location of the site here, the discussion around why they would locate here was that they believe that there was a diverse population here where demand for early learning and child care is high. Statistically, 80 Avenue is located in an area which has the greatest need and the least resources. So St. Gemuel would have the more powerful impact here. Population consists mainly of minority groups, which would benefit from the goals and objectives of the center. Location-wise, it is close to a park, which would give the children access to outdoor activities important for their development and provide space for potential public activities. They are close to transportation at the site, which is important for low-income families, and there is adequate parking in and around the building. As far as the search for their site, there was approximately a 5-year search to find a location. This would give the opportunity to gather for special occasions within this building, a new facility, provide services to families most in need. It is accessible transportation-wise and is close, as we said, to parks. The programs that are offered by St. Gemuel are extensive. including not just 3K and 4K school and daycare programming, but also after school and extended day programs, STEAM or science, technology, engineering, and art and math programs, English as a second language program, No Kids Hungry programs, providing groceries to families, and extracurricular activities such as music and sports. Class sizes would be total roughly 86 students and broken down in classrooms with 15 to 20 students, depending on classroom size. And then finally, there's pickup and drop-off information about both regular day and extended day hours, with extended day hours catering to working families and parents being able to pick up and drop off within a half hour of lead-in and ending time. There is no bus service to the site. Finally, with regards to local security, at St. Gemuel, the safety of children is paramount, and there will be security cameras both inside and outside the building. So in short, this application will directly benefit a local caregiver. We're really happy to be able to bring this project into the community board. This is as far as land use is concerned, this is considered to be a very minor action, which would merely serve to correct the current conditions at this building, which predated the ownership of the applicants here. The problems with the building began from at least 1995. Since then, there have been DOB violations. The current applicants have owned the building since 2017 and are now before the community board in an attempt not only to fix those issues, but also to allow for a local user to benefit from the development of this building. So with that, subject to the chair and the district manager, we're happy to answer any questions.
I have a question. This pre-K 3 and 4, that's part of the Universal K program?
Again, my understanding is that it is part of Universal Pre-K.
Okay, and you're not going to have any school buses delivering students there or picking them up to take them home?
Correct. This site does not receive bus service.
Okay, thank you. Anybody, Harry, just field any other questions people may have?
George, go ahead.
Thanks. Richard, I had a question about some of the applications that were on the building's website. I think I sent an email to all the board members, so forgive me, this gets a little technical. I know I spoke with Alfredo about it. We have no problem with daycares, so let me just state that outright. The concern is you're upzoning to an R6, which fits contextually for the rest of the neighborhood, but when you showed the zoning map with the rest of what that's called we call that affectionately the valley. We refer to that area as the valley. The valley is all R4. And if we rezone this to an R6, that could potentially be the first domino. Meaning, if people were able to, I guess, sell their homes to a private developer in the future, and they said, hey, we want to mimic that R6, because you did it for them, you could potentially, again, 20 years, 30 years, the valley might not look like the valley anymore. And I understand what you're saying, that the daycare is going to remain just a daycare, and they're only doing this to legalize basically what was a non-conforming building. But what I had asked city planning in the lead up to this meeting, and that's why I'm asking you about the building, there were a bunch of filings that looked like they were trying to, I guess, legalize this or get sign off on an alt one. Whatever happened with those? Do you think that's a process that you could go back to, like restarting one of those alteration ones to get a certificate of occupancy?
Yeah, so thank you for the question, George. So when we got involved in this process, which was roughly 2 years ago, they had already been, there was already a massive attempt to legalize the existing construction in the Department of Buildings. So the total history of the project is 1963 existing, manufacturing shop. 1987 or 85 plans are approved to add on to the eastern portion of the building. Those plans were never were never built upon. But in 87 to 95, there was illegal construction, and that added the portion of the building which rounds out the lot to the east. And so the last thing anybody wants to do is to do a rezoning, because frankly, it's like a long, expensive project. And really just to bring in one user, this was like the last thing that Michael and Ron really wanted to do. Having said that, after discussions with DOB and then with city planning, and importantly with St. Gemuel, who, you know, I know Dr. Clark Ramsey is on the phone. I'm hopeful she can say hi. But, you know, after those conversations, it was literally the only way to legalize this building was to rezone to an R6B. And that was the smallest district, which would allow for this floor area. To be clear, you know, if you have a 5,000 square foot lot in an R4, you can build a 10,000 square foot community facility building, build an 11,000 square foot residential building. And that's like under the existing square footage. The R4 district, if people wanted to knock down their home and put up on a 5,000 square foot lot, a 10,000 square foot building, they would be able to do so. So, I mean, Kevin can talk a little bit, who's Kevin Williams from Equity, about city planning considerations of soft sites and whether there would be any additional development here. But the fact remains that this building at a maximum build of 14,000 square feet is added to FAR. It's like what you see is what you get. They wouldn't, you know, there's like no interest to do that type of development here. And so city planning said, okay, we can do this. In addition to which, any application that did come before the community board in the future would have to go through the same torturous Euler process. And so as we've seen from some of the prior applications, you know, it's like somebody would really, you know, the community board would have to be on board with doing so. Obviously, this is kind of a one-off situation, but it's unique in my experience, as in that although there's a rezoning here, there's no additional development that's sought or really even incentivized by this rezoning. It's basically apples for apples.
Okay. Well, I know Alfredo has a question, but I did want to speak, and we've been doing this. We have another project on Grace Avenue further up, the storage facility. They're redoing the sidewalk because the sidewalk was never built out. When I initially reached out to, or when your folks reached out to us, I said, hey, you have this side yard with trees literally growing in the middle of the road on Grace Avenue. You have 3 trees there, and that needs to be addressed. I was then initially told that that's squatters, but that's still your property. Your property abuts Grace Avenue. So you're responsible for the BPP. Will that be built out as part of this project?
Yeah, I don't know, Michael and Ron or Sebastian, do you want to just address that discrete point?
Yeah, if I can. Well, you know, as part of obtaining the CFO, DOB will require a BPP. So as part of the application, we have to show the surrounding street block. So, you know, we would have to put in a sidewalk and you know, we would have to talk to the DOT. The thing is, there's about 4 trees. Those 4 trees are on, it's not even the sidewalk, they're on the roadbed. And I'm surprised that, you know, DOT has never taken care of that street and sidewalk all these years. And this is not like a new development, you know, where you're getting a plot of land and you're putting up a new building. There's been a building there since the early 60s. So why hasn't DOT put in a proper sidewalk or a proper street? I don't know. But it's a process that we're going to have to go through.
Well, you know, the property owner is responsible for the sidewalk, even though the city owns it.
True, yeah. There's also an issue there that there's a utility pole. And also the utility pole is also on the roadbed. It doesn't fall on the sidewalk. So that's something else that needs to be resolved as well.
Okay. So they will be,
Sorry,
I'm sorry, my last question, and then you could take care of it. So Richard, you get the rezoning, you file a new alt one for C of O?
No, we kind of superseded the last existing Alt 1.
Okay,
Yeah, that was done by a previous
that was the
architect.
church, right?
I believe so. So
Okay.
we took that and we're continuing with that, and we were superseding those previously submitted drawings.
But you need the rezoning them. That's what I was trying to get at before. You cannot, you're trying to reactivate that alt one to get the CO on that alt one, but you need the rezoning in order to make it legal.
Correct.
Okay, I got it. Is that why it was in disapproved status for so, like, that's why building said no to it because they couldn't do it in the R4?
Yeah, because it did meet the bulk under the R4.
Meaning
And
the
that's
yard.
the roof stuff. That's the 2 feet on the roof, right?
No, it really dealt with the side yards.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm good.
You have any other questions, Harry?
Yeah, we have Alfredo.
Okay, Alfredo?
We can't hear you, Alfredo.
Sorry, thank you for the presentation. A couple of things to piggyback on what the district manager said, George. Going from an R4 to R6B, if the daycare decides to go bonkers next month, they can knock the building down and add a 6-story building there.
That's incorrect. There's the height cap is.
Whoa, guys! I let y'all speak. Let me speak. Don't do that.
Sure, of course.
Don't do that. Don't do that again. All right, please. Thank you. Again, going back from R4 to R6, me personally, I don't know why that's the issue. Why y'all didn't go to the board for a variance for this? Mr. Architect, the job that was filed, that all one, do you have a copy of the objections? I would like to see the objections to see what objections were raised as to why you can continue with this job.
I can.
And another thing is, why didn't y'all go to the board? Why didn't y'all go to the BSA for this? Because it's expensive and it's going to cost y'all like $100,000 to do this. That's why y'all didn't go to the board and y'all trying to come to us to rezone an area that's been an R4 forever. Is that the reason why? I need clarity as to why y'all didn't go to BSA to get a special permit to continue this non-conforming use.
Sure. So, Alfredo, may I answer that?
You can answer. Now you can answer. Just don't. Just when people are talking, don't talk over them, please. It's very rude and disrespectful.
Sorry about that. So, while we do about half our applications before city planning, the other half of our applications are before the BSA, the Board of Standards and Appeals. And we made inquiries with regards to what would be a good application for them to take. And there's, when you go to the BSA, one of the findings is with regards to self-created hardship and whether the conditions at the site were caused by the owner or a predecessor in interest. So the fact that they were outside of they were not in accordance with plans. They built in between 87 and 95. They just built, and they did not do it pursuant to plans. That alone would basically take them out of the opportunity to get a variance at BSA. BSA applications are, generally speaking, maybe half of the cost of a city planning application. Generally speaking, those applications are done within a year. There's city planning applications require that you go, BSA applications require community board and BSA approval. City planning applications, you're going to community board, the Bronx Borough President, city planning, and the council. There's about a year of environmental review. So the absolute preference here would have been able to go to BSA. The fact that they couldn't do it at DOB as of right, they couldn't do it at BSA with a hardship application, and they basically, this was their last resort. So given everything, and given the fact that St. Jemuel is, and I understand Dr. Clark Ramsey is having problems getting in through WebEx. George, I don't know if there's a phone number that she could get so she could call in, but given that, when we talked to city planning, they said, okay, come in with this application. An R6B zoning district is important for two reasons. Number one, there's not, does not allow for unfettered height. The buildings that are built in accordance with R6B districts max out at 5 stories. Most of them are 4-story buildings. The three buildings adjacent to this on Grace, or sorry, on 80, are all 3-story buildings. So it's not something where you'd have unfettered development. And then importantly, R6B also, if you did do anything to the property, and by the way, St. Gemuel has a lease here, a lease term here. Oh, George is giving Dr. Clark a number. St. Gemuel has a lease term here, at least 10 years on the site. But if you did knock down the building at the site, you would have to build back with affordable housing. R6B is the minimum district that basically carries that requirement. So importantly, city planning said, okay, no one's going to redevelop here, but if they redevelop and they knock down their existing building, they basically have to build back with 25 to 30% affordability. And on these sites, it would not make good business sense for them to do that. So that's all those reasons together are why they chose to come in for a reason.
Rich, if I can add something else to Mr. Figueroa's question, the 3 adjacent sites also exceed the allowable FAR. They're at 1.65, and so in this proposed district, actually, an R4 allows a community facility at 2.0. That's what's allowed max as of right under the R6B. And so the 3 adjacent lots, one of the reasons why the city recommended, and worked with us regarding the zoning boundary is because those 3 sites are illegal, or existing non-compliant with existing zoning. So this brings them into compliance. And so one of the reasons why they didn't feel that these would be induced to be developed is they're all single, family homes that basically max out the development, under the current zoning and then some. And so this allows the city to legalize the zone.
All right. So just getting back to Mr. Lobel, you're saying that you filed with BSA or you didn't file with BSA?
We did not file with BSA. We basically, we spoke with Carlo Costanzo.
Can you file with them? Can you file with them and let them give you an objection that no, they're not gonna allow you to do this?
They don't do that.
I've done many BSA cases of BSA approvals. We got in 1978 and they reopened the cases. You see what I'm saying?
I've brought over 100 applications for schools, educational institutions in pre-Ks. It's not a good application. I believe me.
I mean, personally, this is just my opinion. I think you should go before the board, get an objection from them, and then we move to the CPC situation. Mr. Architect, if you could, you have a copy of the objection sheet in front of you that Blanca issued regarding that one? Is there anything on that objection that states that it's not permitted as of right and to go either to CPC or to the board?
So, basically, this is the objection sheet.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And, as you can see, denied for appeal to the Board of Standards and Appeals. But the big problem here is...
Mr. Sebastian, what you said, that what? Number 9 says what?
I'm sorry, repeat that?
You said number 9 reads what?
No, what I'm saying that, we have the denial from the Borough Commissioner.
No, that, but on the CCD1 or CRD1, they rejected it? Who was that?
This was Defoe. This was Defoe.
Defoe rejected it. You have that rejected CCD1 or CRD1 stating that he rejected it. But the reason I'm getting at, there's got to be a reason why they rejected it, and it's good for the board to understand. Not just okay, like Mr. Lobel, you said this is something quick and easy. It's quick and easy on your behalf, but you got to understand some of our board members that are on this call and on this Zoom, they don't really understand the whole concept of zoning. So you cannot just come and say, oh, this is something quick and easy, and then it's not quick and easy, because then it makes, it's not good practice. So again, from my experience dealing with the DOB and with the board, you file a job, it gets rejected. They tell you why it gets rejected. We answer the objection. If the objections can't get answered, you go to the board. The board either grants your variance or they reject it. And then from there, you go to city planning, to overwrite that. Now, again, Mr. Sebastian mentioned that number 9 got rejected by the borough. Somebody, either you guys or the people before you, George Lee, he must have went to the borough, sat down with Defoe. Defoe said, nope, not happening. Go somewhere else. What happened between when George Lee was the applicant, Defoe rejected that reconsideration, and where we at now? Now, going back to the violations, right? These violations, I'm going to assume predate the new owners. You see what I'm saying? So a lot of stuff has happened on that property since 87, 85, whatever, that have not been taken care of. So now you're coming to us to try to get the easy way out. Or you know what? Let's go to the board, tell them to rezone it and call it a day. That's the problem that we're having, and that's why we have to be careful what we present to our members so they can understand and they know the history. Not just me explaining the history, they know the history coming from you guys, because you guys are the professionals and you're presenting this. Not just say, okay, cool, we want to rezone 1930 AD, but y'all don't get into why. Y'all don't get into it was rejected by DOB. It was rejected by the borough commissioner. This happened, that happened, this happened. Just approve it. R6B, call it a day. 10 years now, 10 years down the road, God forbid, the daycare goes out of business. They knock the building down. It gets something else goes up. A lot of stuff is going on. I'm done. Thank you, guys.
Dr. Burke?
I'm very glad that our district manager and Alfredo know what the hell they're talking about. I'm just gonna leave it at that. I guess my only thing is, no one's mentioned the MIH portion. And so let me just say, I reiterate what our district manager says. We have absolutely nothing against pre-kindergarten and kindergarten. So let me just say that. Why is MIH included in the rezoning application? I mean, that's what I'm trying to understand. I mean, I've been, I know that I'm not as good as Alfredo and George, but I'm actually trying to learn something about rezoning, and I am familiar with MIH a little. So why is MIH needed for this application?
Sure. So the zoning text was changed in 2016 to require mandatory inclusionary housing. And so on any rezoning action, which basically goes to a minimum of R6B, you need to map an inclusionary housing district, which basically means that any rezoning that happens carries with it a requirement that if you redevelop with affordability, 25 to 30% of the residential square footage must be devoted to affordable housing. So on a job like this, our corner site is a 2 FAR for community facility use. That 2 FAR is not MIH affected. It's basically community facility does not carry with it an MIH requirement. For any resident.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Can I ask a question? So so you mentioned that if we were talking about developing and so forth and so on, but it's going to be a daycare center, right? So if it's going to be a daycare center, then why do you need to worry about developing anything? I mean, and that's the problem that I have, because I think, as it's been stated previously, if the daycare center goes out of business, we're screwed. So that's the problem that I have. And in your explanation, the first part was fine, but then you said if we start developing X, Y, and Z,
right,
boom, then that's where the problem, for me, that's where the problem arises.
Sure.
If you just said daycare, fine. So anyway, like I said, Alfredo, Mr. Figueroa, and Mr. Torres are great at this. So those are just that's my question.
Yeah, and just to be clear, we have no choice about mapping mandatory inclusionary housing districts. They basically, once you map an R6B, they go up. Just the important thing to note, so everyone is clear on this, in the existing district right now, on a 7,000 square foot site like exists here, you can put a 14,000 square foot daycare center. On the R6B district that we would have if this was rezoned, you can put a 14,000 square foot daycare center. The difference is, as Sebastian said, the yards. There is a front yard requirement of 10 feet for the daycare center if it was to go in as a new daycare center. With the R6B, those requirements are waived. So for that, and not even for the portion that's on the corner of Grace and 80, but for the enlarged portion that was built illegally in 1987 to 95, that would need to come down and would need to go back with yards. It would basically ruin the floor plan for St. Jemuel or any other educational or daycare or social service company or social services that wanted to come into the site. I do know that Dr. Clark was given the phone number and still would be happy for her to talk if she's able to talk to the committee. George, did we get her?
I know she was provided the phone number and the access
Yeah,
code.
I don't know if and the access code. So I don't know if she's. I don't even see her picture. Oh, there she is. She's there. She's still having audio problems. Yeah.
So then we'll take the question from Michael and Ron Gilbert.
Hello, everyone. So Ron and I are the owners of the property along with Mr. Singh. Ron and I have and Mr. Singh, we have had a number of daycare tenants for many years. And as far as Mr. Figueroa and other people's concern about developing housing, we are not housing developers. When Mr. Weissman was talking about his development of White Plains, we were both just staring at each other and had no idea what they were talking about with some housing stuff, because it's just way above what we do. Well, what we do is we develop properties similar to this, from a warehouse use that no one wants to a better use, a daycare center. In a presentation, there's another center
Excuse me, I think we're listening to 1930 AD. The other hearing was closed.
You know, I was just saying, remember, what I was saying about in the past, about 15 years ago, we built out the site over on 148th Street. Again, that was a factory building underutilized for the area, and we revitalized that, built out the daycare center, and really made that much better.
Whatever you're saying is not going to be taken into consideration right now because the hearing was closed on Furman Avenue.
We're talking about 1930 Avenue.
Carl, these three applicants.
I'm trying to give you some background as far as the concerns about the housing, and that site on 148th Street, which there was a picture of it. It was the Blue Daycare Center. Just to give you an idea, that site could yield, I believe it's about 85 apartments, and we have no interest in doing that, because that's just not what we do. Well, what we do is we work with the nonprofits, build out something nice, and maintain it, and just give the services to the community. You know, in the South Bronx, West Bronx on it, and now we're here in the Northeast Bronx looking to do the same.
Anybody else want to speak?
Yeah, I think Alfredo has a follow-up, perhaps.
Okay, Alfredo, thank you.
Real quick, 2 minutes. I know it's getting late. Mr. Gilbert, how long you've owned this property for? This particular property, 1930 AD.
So we purchased this at a city tax auction in 2017. As far as the expansion or that, we have nothing to do with that whatsoever.
So okay, so you've owned the property since 2017. What tenants do you have there now, or is it an empty space?
It's completely vacant because the previous CFO for manufacturing was no longer valid. So we wanted to legalize everything, put it in the daycare center, so the entire building is vacant, and has been so since we started this process.
So since 2017, the property's been vacant. But why it took you guys almost 5 years to get to this conclusion? If you're stating that you're in the daycare business, and if you knew that eventually you was gonna put a daycare, I'm just talking ahead. If I was a developer and I'm into the daycare business and I know I want to develop this property, I would have started in 2017 when I first got the property, not wait 5 years later, to make things more difficult for yourselves. You see what I'm saying?
I do understand what you're saying. We really want to find the right operator, because a project like this with the interior build out needed, with the elevator, with the classroom build out and all of that, is a major undertaking. And so we want to make sure we get an operator, rather than putting in someone who was just starting out, and we put them in and they can't last. In this case, St. doing well, has relationships with the city, has existing locations, and will also be benefiting from the UPK and 3PK programs, allowing the young children to get education before going into kindergarten, which I know because I'm kindergarten this year, and kindergartners nowadays are expected to know so much more than when I was a kid. My daughter's doing addition, subtraction, some algebra. It's incredible.
All right, no, thank you for answering my question. I think I'm done. This other stuff here, but
Hello.
oh,
We got her.
we got her.
Okay.
Oh, technology is not one of my specialties. Okay, so this is Dr. Clark Ramsey. I'm the director for the St. General Group Family Daycare Center, which is located on 2836 Webb Avenue. So I've listened to all the presenters, and just to answer a few questions, I know Ms. Alfredo is concerned about what's going to happen to the property if a daycare is built there. In my experience of 20 years at Board of Education and almost in the system for education, especially early childhood education, is not going anywhere. There's always a need for early childhood education, meeting the needs from infants to 5-year-old. And even if, I wouldn't say that, but even if there is a problem where the building is to be broken down and what else is to be there, there's so much varieties of education. There's after school, there is STEAM, there is second language learners, if it's a multicultural zone, which AD is. So there is a variety of components and cultural activities that can benefit the needs of the families in that area as well as the kids. So not in my estimation, but as an educator, I think having a daycare center there is basically one of the best things that could have happened in that area. Considering that there are a lot of private homes around, I've gone around and visit the area. There is basically 66,000 families living in that area, and taking also into consideration that it's a joint, I wouldn't use the word a joint, but it's pretty near to Cork City. Cork City is also a very populated area, and there are over 7,000 and something kids in that area between 3 and 4, right? So it's a very important component, a very important organization to put a daycare there, especially St. General, who have had experience there. And our program involves that. You could probably look it up at the Board of Ed. The kids that we serve from 3 to 5 have exceeded the expectations in some area of the state in terms of their academic assessment, which the curriculum we use is core, and it measures the social, emotional area of the child, 6 domains, right? And we have excelled. These little kids have excelled in some areas above the state requirement. So we would love to have the opportunity of impacting the AD Avenue community so that those kids can get the best education at an early age, so that they could be better citizens, responsible citizens, and being able to make informed decisions based on what we will offer them and have offered them and have seen the results.
Thank you, Doctor. I'm glad you was able to get through. A lot of us are not too tech savvy, not even myself. Thank you. God bless.
Okay.
Just to be on the clear, like the first thing our chair, our district manager said, we're not anti-daycare. We would like a daycare to go here. We have no problems with that. At no time that we say we don't want the daycare there. It's just the way it's being presented that is just a little iffy. It doesn't really make that much sense. That's why that's the only issue that at least I have, and I speak for myself, the way it's being presented. So, that we want the daycare 100%. That is going to benefit our community 100%. We live in this community, so we know what our community needs. What we're saying is the way it was presented. No disrespect to Mr. Nobel. Mr. Nobel, I know his father very well. So again, it has nothing to do with just the way it was presented. It's a little misleading, and also, like I mentioned before, some of our board members, don't really understand. So when we come and say that's something simple, they think it's something simple. But then I start talking, then they probably say, "Damn, Alfredo probably is talking too much, or he doesn't know what he's talking about, or he's just talking a little bit more than what's being presented." So we just need a little bit more clarification, like that they understand. Like, for instance, the situation with the 23-foot roof. I know why you want to bring it down to 23 feet. I know the tricks of the zoning. I understand that. So they need to know exactly why we're doing this like that. They get a clear clarification as to why. And now, again, me personally, I think the board should have rejected this. That's just my opinion. I don't know why it never went to the board. That's something that we should have another conversation on. But just to get back to the doctor, we are not anti-daycare. We want a daycare, and we want this project to go through. We just need more clarification to be on the same page so everybody understands what exactly it is that's being presented to this particular board. Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you. We have a question from Ms. Blair.
I don't have a question. It's more of an additional comment onto what she was saying. In terms of the neighborhood, like as was stated earlier, Co-op City, yes, totally would benefit from an additional daycare. The Valley would also benefit as well, but I'm also even considering the fact that the MTA has like bus depots in that area as well. And thinking about all the people who work there who may have kids, the daycare, as everyone's saying over and over again, we're not really against the daycare. We're more so just trying to figure out what's the plan, what seems to be your backup plan if this daycare somehow fails, which I don't see happening.
Any other questions?
On that? This is Dr. Clark. I'm dittoing the last speaker that education is not here to fail. And it's like I've doing the analogy. It's like a piece of real estate, right? It's there. Even if it bends, it will always rise because people in all areas are trying to educate the masses in one way or the other.
Can you, Dr. Clark, can you answer, you signed the lease with these folks? How long is the lease for, and how long is the contract with DOE for the daycare?
DOE is willing to give a 5 years lease with renewal. So according to the contract, that's what they do. I am in this building 17 years, and each time it's been renewed, the 5 years up, they renew it. And that's my current daycare that I'm in now.
And renewal is based on meeting measurable goals for education of the youth, right?
Yes, and one of the things DOE does, if the current tenant fails, they bring in new directors, new staff who can keep the program going.
Okay. All right.
I have a question. Why do we have to approve a zoning change when we can approve a variance that is renewable every 5 years?
Sure. So thanks for the question, Carl. So, when we have a choice, we go to BSA. BSA variances they basically are much more limited. You look at the detailed environmental findings. As Mr. Figueroa mentioned, you go to DOB, you get your bulk waivers, you get your bulk objections, you take them to VSA, and you get your variance. There's a few reasons why the variance wouldn't work here. Number one, we do schools and educational institutions. The schools are largely the owners of the site, or have an ownership interest in the site. And so there's no financial hardship finding that's required for an educational institution that's going in. Most importantly, though, and here it's a problem you really can't get around, is that schools are still subject to a D finding for a variance, which is the self-created hardship. The board looks at an application, they look at the owner of the site and they say, did you do anything here which would have required you to get a variance? Meaning, like, the classic example is you've got a square property and you divide into two triangles and say, I can't build on this as a triangle, give me yard relief. You can't create your own hardship. The fact remains here that this building has basically been built illegally dating back to 1987 to 1995. So the fact that there was illegal construction which made this condition would take this application out of the hardship finding. Were we able to go to BSA? It's a no-brainer. We go to DOB, we get our objection. We're at BSA. Most of those applications take 8 months to 10 months. This application, going into the Department of City Planning for rezoning, going through environmental review where they have to do reasonable worst case scenario, environmental assessment statement, ULURP review, and then 6 months of hearings at all the agencies. It is a mess and it's more expensive. So the issue here is that Ron and Mike found St. Jemuel and found Dr. Clark Ramsey. And basically, like these guys have demonstrated, they're community facility guys, they're daycare guys, they're pre-K guys. So when they found this tenant who was in the area and wanted to remain in the area and could take this building, which was a burden and was built illegally and is vacant, and turn it into something frankly beautiful, they decided they want to do that, despite the fact that it is a terrible process, and one which we do not seek out. We would rather not have to come here for this type of application. But having said that, we made our efforts. It became clear through all the agencies that we had to go through this. So that's why we're here, and that's why we're hopeful for the board support.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
There's a question from Deborah. Why is it not being utilized now as a daycare center before it is extended? I think you spoke on this, Richard, but if you want to answer it real quick.
Yeah, they don't have there's no C of O right now. This went from mechanical shop. I believe there was a church that was illegally located at the site for a number of years. They went out, and then in 2017, Mike and Ron got the building. And so if they put in a daycare there right now, they'd be in violation of DOB code, fire department regulations. They'd never do it. So that's why they basically have sat with the site vacant for now close to 3 or 4 years. The address of the building is 1930 80 Avenue. That's for Ted.
And just so for my board members, I don't want to dwell on the fact that it's a daycare. There are positives for this because as part of this rezoning, if it goes through, if we vote for it, then we're also correcting or legalizing the building for this daycare use, but we're also getting a sidewalk and the trees, the most importantly, 4 trees out of the roadbed. And we're getting a sidewalk for people who live on Grace Avenue to walk up and down. So there are benefits for that. Again, the concern for us is, we're upzoning to an R6, and to address one of the concerns that everybody, I did ask this of city planning. The R6B just automatically comes with MIH. So there's nothing that no one could do about it. If they could have chosen a different designation that would have made the parameters fit, they would have done that. It's just that this was the only one that fit because they have the side yard issues and they have the rear yard issues. And you'll see the setbacks if you look at the private homes that are right next to the left of this. If you're looking at the facility, the private homes all have front yards. So they're illegal because their building extends past those front yards. So if you Google Earth it, you'll see what we're talking about with the front yard issue. So they have a front yard that is where their driveway and their garage is basically. This building obviously cannot do that. So again, that's a lot to consider. Richard, a question for you guys are on the clock as well, right? Like we have this BSA. When did they certify? I'm sorry, not this BSA. Not it.
I know what you meant, George.
Yeah.
Amanda, do you know our cert date?
Yeah, we were certified on December 13th, Monday,
December 13th.
Okay. So we have to have a public hearing, Mr. Chairman, for this application and for the previous application.
Yeah, Berman. Heaven. I have one thing, George.
Yeah.
The utility pole that's also in the street has to be relocated.
Yeah. Yes.
All right. I believe that would be Con Ed's electrical system.
I would imagine, yeah. I mean, they would have to follow BPP. They would, they would go through their processes of getting all that straightened out. So that's an added benefit. And for me, who I travel down Grace Avenue almost every single day, I see it every day. I mean, this has been something. It would just like building the sidewalk further up where the storage facility is, and now getting this sidewalk built. All we would then need to do is do Eli Avenue, and the valley would be straight. They would all have walkable sidewalks. So that would be a wonderful thing. So again, there's benefits to this. There's some cons to it, but I just want my job for you guys, for my board members, is to try to explain everything and be straightforward with everyone on it. All right. So you're December 13th. When's the application's already on the website. So, and I know Furman just got there as well. So would you object if we had it on, I think Furman was okay with it. Are you guys okay with, I think our full board meeting is the 23rd or the 24th of January?
Yeah, that's great for us.
1, 2, 3, 4. The 27th, I'm sorry.
You were close.
That's also good.
Okay, so for Carl, for us, we just need to figure out a time. So that could be the next discussion.
Yeah, we'll discuss that after the meeting is,
Okay.
It's going to have to be early. If we're going to put it on the same night the board meets, and the board starts at 7:30, we're going to have it like 6:30, depending on how long we think it's going to take.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
Well, first of all, the board starts at 7 o'clock, Mr. Stricker. I just want to say that, not 7:30.
Oh, no wonder I missed it.
So I just want to say that. I just have one final question. So, Mrs. LaBelle, again, welcome you and Attorney Ionetti again. When you did the extra space storage in the application further up that the district manager just referred to you, you came to us prior to, at least 6 months prior to, for the variance expiring. In this particular case, for this application, you were supposed to come to us at the October meeting, the October Land Use Committee meeting, of course, and you didn't. And then you went on ahead and certified, and now you're coming to the board. So I guess my question is, why is that? And so I'm not blaming Dr. Clark for this at all, because as I said, she's just trying to get her daycare. So I'm now asking you and or the owners, Michael and Ron, if you might please forget your last names. Why is it that you did not give us the same deference when you were supposed to come in October, didn't, certified, and now, pretty much, if you would, I think for the explanation that you've given to the district manager as well as to Mr. Figueroa.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Amanda, can you talk about a little bit about any contact before the certification date?
You're probably referring to, this was noticed, I think around August for a early fall certification, but that certification was delayed slightly because the environmental review ended up not being done in time to be certified in early fall. So we had to go work a little bit more with city planning and EARD, environmental review. And then we were finally certified in December. So although notice went out earlier in the fall that this was going to be certified, certification was delayed a little bit. And then we ended up being certified in December.
But that's not my question. My question is that when you guys did the extra space storage application, you came to us at least 6 months in advance. In fact, you came to us a year ago this month. and that variance wasn't set to expire until June, July of last year. My question to you is, if you just certified, whether it's delayed or not, you were supposed to come to this committee in October of 2021 to discuss what we're discussing now. My question is, why did you not, all these questions that we're asking now could have been asked then, and therefore it would probably be a lot easier meeting. My question is, why did you not do that? Why did you wait till now after you certified to come to us to ask for approval? That's my question.
Yeah, the only thing that I'm getting tripped up on is that there was some sort of expiration. Which storage are we talking about? I'm not sure.
You don't represent, Dr. Burke, they don't represent extra space storage.
Well, they don't. Okay, I thought they don't.
Yeah, that's Greenberg Trowig is representing.
Okay, my fault. I'm sorry. Okay, my fault. I thought they looked for me. I apologize.
No.
Okay.
Alfredo?
Yeah, sorry. I know we keep going back and forth, but the more they talk, the more I want to speak. Richard, say this goes through these two pending violations, right? I mean, are you familiar with them? You've read through them?
Yes.
Yeah. You know that they need to be eventually certified, right?
The front yard and side yard need to be removed, right?
No, the two violations. There's two violations there. Even though they say written off, AEU is not going to certify correction until you show proof that those things were corrected. So in moving forward with this application, if it goes through, then once you have new approved plans and a permit, then I'm going to assume those two violations will be taken care of, correct?
Yeah.
100%.
Okay.
One of the violations deals with the building being extended without having a work permit.
Yes. So wait. So no, I want to get to that because two more things. So once, if this goes through and you get the approval and a permit, then that will take care, and the owners could certify correction on these two open violations. Even though they say written off, and people think because it says written off that they were taken care of. AEU will not dismiss them from the bid system until they were certified. Yeah. Another thing, Mr. De Alexandro, very important for you to that one you keep referring to. The last action date was 2019. We on 2022. Just FYI, I suggest, if being that y'all mentioned that y'all gonna utilize that particular application, I suggest you get that job reinstated like tomorrow. The reason is there's a new sheriff in town in the Bronx, and he's not reinstating nothing that's over 2 years old. So I strongly suggest, being that you already referenced that and it's on record that you're gonna utilize that particular application, that you try to get it reinstated ASAP. Because we don't want that later you come back with a different application number, and then we're like, wait a second, that's not the application number that you came to the board for. So just FYI, as a courtesy, I'm letting you know, from an expediter to architect, just reinstate that application ASAP. Otherwise, you're gonna have to refile the job, and if it gets assigned to a different examiner, then you know how that's gonna go. So that's just FYI, and that's it. I think that was about it. Okay.
Thank you.
Carl, over to you.
Okay, if no further questions, we can close this portion of the meeting tonight, and we'll vote on it after the meeting's done. So it'll be closed at 19:06. Now, the next on the agenda is 3330 Palmer Avenue. Are you here?
Yeah. Hi. Yeah.
All right, go ahead with your presentation.
Olga, do you want to put it up? Are you there?
Yep, I'm just sharing my screen. Just give me a few minutes.
Hi. So we're just coming back. We were here last month and so the presentation really is designed to address some of those issues that were raised at the hearing last month about the project. I think there were three areas of contention or discussion. One had to do with the property itself, the condition that it, some of the conditions outside of the property, on the perimeter of the property. The second was about the income limits for the property, so we want to clarify that. And then the third issue really had to do with the policy of tax exemptions, which is something that I believe HPD is going to address in writing. But we're, as the owner, we're not going to comment really on HPD's programs and why they do things the way they are, except as they relate perhaps to this particular property. So again, some of this is repetitive for those of you who were here last month. Olga, it's like not stopping. So can you go to page 2 or something like that, and we can just flip through it, or yeah, it's like on auto rotation or something. And the owner is on. Sam, I think you're there, and the property manager, Ari Weissman's there to answer questions. But, you know, this is a property that was built about 22 years ago, 21, 22 years ago. It was finished. I know a little bit about it because I was in the government. I actually worked at the Housing Development Corporation that lent the money to the original developer, McQuestion Development, that developed the property in 2000. And the current owner purchased it from them in 2016. It's an existing building. It was 135 units, including the super's apartment. It's predominantly for families. You can see, unlike many affordable housing projects today, which are largely studios and one bedrooms, this building was constructed mostly for families with 2 and 3 bedroom apartments. There are though 8 one bedrooms as well. So when the owner purchased the property, all the loans, including the subsidy loans that were provided by the Housing Development Corporation, the project's privately financed now, but it does have a tax exemption that was granted in conjunction with the original construction of the property. The issue is that tax exemption is now beginning to phase out, and in 4 years from now, it'll be fully phased out, and that's why the owner is seeking a new tax exemption pursuant to what's called Article 11 of the Private Housing Finance Law, which requires the approval not only of HPD, but the City Council. And Council Member Riley requested that we go before the Community Board and discuss the project with you, which is why we're here last month and why we're back again today. So that's the status. So as I said a month ago, the project needs the new tax exemption because full taxes on the property would not be sustainable based on the current rent roll, even though the project is not a very low income project. It was constructed to be a modern middle income project, and that's the current rent roll. So we want to come back to you now with some specific information about that, and more than we presented last month. So on the top, you can see the current range of rents. There's a variety of rents, largely because the building's rent stabilized, and so some of the tenants who are there are the original tenants in the building, and all they've gotten is the whatever increases that you know, the Rent Guidelines Board has allowed over the past 21 years. But in other apartments may have turned over several times in the prior owner, and this owner, prior to the change in the rent law a few years ago, was entitled to a vacancy allowance. So that's why there's a variety of rents here. You can see the one-bedroom rents range from about $1,350 to $1,830 a month. The two-bedroom apartments, the least expensive two-bedroom apartment is $1,620 a month, up to $2,083 a month. And the three bedrooms have rents ranging from just under $1,900 a month to $2,300 a month. As part right now, there are no units occupied by formerly homeless. There may be a couple that the owner has taken in anticipation of getting the tax exemption, but as a condition to getting this new tax exemption, HPD is requiring that it's not 20, that's a mistake. It's not 20% of the units, it's 20 of the units. It's 15% of the units. So I apologize for that. It's 15% of the units, 20 in total, are to be rented to formerly homeless families. That, could be homeless for any number of reasons, from fire, as we saw yesterday, loss of job, medical issues, forced eviction, what have you. But so the tenants are screened, so they're by the owner, just like any other tenant would be. So the issue came up, what are the income limits? You can see by the rents. So we're trying to give you an idea. The maximum for a one-bedroom apartment, which would be the maximum, would be a two-person household. You need a minimum income of, depending upon the rent, anywhere from $54,000 to $75,000 a year. But based on the income limits that would be HPD's approved for this new tax exemption, the tenants could earn up to as much as $110,000 for $75,000 to $110,000. There would be three income tiers, in the property. So the maximum income for the lowest tier would be $75,000 and $110,800 for the maximum income, for the more expensive apartments. Okay, in the one bedrooms, similarly in the two bedrooms, could be a four-person household. The minimum incomes would be $64,000 to $83,000 to be able to afford the rent at 30% of their income. That's the typical standard for an apartment, for an owner to rent an apartment, 30% of your income for rent. And the maximum incomes to provide a marketing ban would be from a little bit less than $90,000 to $130,000. And in the three-bedroom apartments, five-person typically, 4 to 5 people, the minimum incomes, again, because the rents are a little higher, would be $75,000 to $91,000. And the maximum income could range from, for the most expensive three-bedroom apartment, all the way up to $141,000 or so for a five-person household. So, there was some discussion about, some people expressed a concern that this would be a low-income project, and it's not a low-income project. It was designed originally for moderate and middle-income families, and under the agreement with HPD, it would remain a moderate and middle-income affordable project, a resource for moderate and middle-income renters in the community. So that's the first thing we wanted to talk about. And then the second issue had to do with the maintenance and measures. And so I don't, Sam, are you still on, or are you on? Do you want to talk about what it is you've done in response to community board concerns, the land use committee's concerns that were raised last week? Sam, you there? Right, somebody.
I'm here. Hi, good evening, everybody. This is Ari from the management.
Oh, Ari.
Hi. Okay, so since the last meeting, we actually tapped into a service that provides 24/7 live monitoring of cameras that we installed. We installed 2 cameras that are monitored by a live person 24/7 to try to fight back against the drivers that pass by and dump on our property. We actually have we did a deep cleaning also. As we do periodically, we do see that we need to step it up, but we definitely seen a major improvement, and we hope to keep it up going forward as well. That's as far as the the corner on Buller and Given Avenue that was brought up.
Just to amplify that, since that time, the owners, cleaned up, removed all, as far as we know, removed all the debris from that part of the property.
That's correct. We had we actually had two 30-yard dumpsters to kind of get to try to like start from zero again. Since we did the clean out, it's pretty much at this point it's as good as we can get it, with the way the street turns into the sidewalk. Con Edison dumped over there a post, and someone else dumped over there like a concrete barricade. It's a struggle because the border of where the street ends and our property begins are like non-existent. Like if it rains, there's like a massive puddle like halfway from the street all the way to the building. It's just an unfinished raw area that just to maintain it is just a challenge that we have to deal with, and we'll try to do the best we can.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any further questions? Is there any questions?
Dr. Burke?
Hi, I do. George, you want to ask a question before I get started? George?
Yeah, I don't have a question, I guess, so much as we have conversations with our agency, so we ask for some information. We're just waiting to hear back from the agency. I guess there was something that came up that I guess maybe we should consider as a board. I guess there's a contention that if you don't get the subsidy, the Article 11, would this take the property out of the rent stabilization guidelines, I guess?
Yeah, so let me answer that. So the building is currently rent stabilized. It's rent stabilized because it received the 421A tax exemption. Pursuant to law, okay, the 421, the rent stabilization expires when the tax exemption expires. However, because the building received subsidies when it was originally built, pursuant to the regulatory agreement that still encumbers the property, the existing tenants, okay, will be protected by rent stabilization, even though the building will no longer be in rent stabilization. But beginning in 2025 and 26, when the units become vacant, if there's no new tax exemption, the owner can raise the rent to whatever he wants to for any new tenant. In the interim period, during this 4-year period, as the 421A phases out gradually, the owner is also entitled to an additional 2.2% increase in rents over and above whatever the rent guidelines board approves for 1 year lease. So those are the facts as they relate to this building.
Okay.
Thank you, George. So let me get started. So let me pick up on that. So I have, have a series of questions. So I want to go to this. I was picking up your slide. So a total of 1876 rent stabilized units. This is the last time we talked, with 6 or 10 of them not being rent stabilized. And this is throughout the entire Bronx. This is for you, either Mr. Applegard or you, Mr. Brass, can answer these questions. So of those, YMY properties has how many buildings total? So of those 82 to 1886 units, how many of those are, how many properties are we talking about with those units?
It's about 35 or so.
Okay, so 35 properties. Okay. Now, do any of those properties have 420A tax?
421.
What's that?
421A.
Yeah, 421s. Yeah, how many of those have 421As?
I'm pretty sure none.
Okay. Okay. So have you
So they
applied?
would be all much older buildings.
What's that?
They would be all much older buildings than this.
Oh, they'd be old. Okay, so in other words, you couldn't apply for the 421As. Let me ask you this: what about the Article 11 tax exemption on those other buildings? Do you have any of those?
Generally, no. Maybe 1 or 2 might have a J51, but it's completely a different program.
Okay. I'm going to this question right here. So if I look at slide 3, you acquired the property from I think that's McCurston in the year 2000. Well, you actually acquired it in 2016, but he actually built it in 2000 if I looked at the slide correctly. So so this is going back to the explanation that you gave us the last time that you were here. So that pretty much stated that you needed the $35 to $40 million tax break in order to perform repairs. So when you acquired the property in 2016, did you or someone from your team do a property inspection?
They definitely did.
Right. So okay. So if that's the case, were there any repairs that you thought may have been needed at that particular time?
Nothing that struck us at the time.
Okay. Okay. Um, So, and I noticed that you also said in slide 4 that you needed this tax abatement also to, I think, for the aging in place program that you stated that this tax abatement would help you maintain. How many elderly, do you currently have on your property as a speak at the moment?
Can I just say something there, Don? We didn't say we needed it for the aging in place program. What we
No,
said,
but that was on the slide. That was on the slide that you presented last time.
it requires us to participate, requires the owner to participate in the aging in place program as a condition to giving.
Okay, so how many? I'm sorry. So how many elderly do you have on the property?
We did a survey. At the moment, it's I want to say about a dozen or so.
A dozen. Okay, so 12. Okay. And I guess another question that I have is, so you presented a slide, I want to say slide 5 or 6, in which you gave the required incomes if you were able to get the tax abatement. My question to you is, what would the required income be if you did not get the tax abatement? So in other words, you gave a series of incomes from your 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. What would those incomes be if you did not get the tax abatements and you were afforded the opportunity to raise the rent?
Well, the minimum incomes based on the current rents would be the same. Okay, there would be no maximum income for the property after 2025. So there would be no affordability limits thereafter.
Right,
And
but you
without
stated that the last time that you were here, you stated that you had to
without
raise
the
the
tax
rent,
exemption, the owner
tax
will
abatement.
be
Right, that you would have
forced
to
to
raise the
raise
rent.
the rents for new tenants in order to pay the tax bill. That's what we're trying to avoid, is a huge increase in rents to so that moderate income families can't afford the rent. That's what we're trying to avoid.
Okay, so what you're saying now is, so let me make sure I hear you, because the last time I heard you say that you had to raise the rent on all of your tenants if you did not get the Article 11 a tax abatement. That's what I thought I heard. Now you're not saying that.
What we're saying is we will ultimately have to raise the rents as units become vacant on all of the units. Yes.
I guess the problem that I have is, and I'm glad that Councilman Riley, I think one of his representatives is here, is, I mean, obviously because they want a recommendation from us as to what the councilman should do. I mean, the councilman is going to do what he wants, and hopefully that's in the best interest of the community. For me, it's still a hard pill to swallow because I looked at, what percentage you're paying in taxes versus what not only myself, but some of the other board members and community members that are on here that own houses, that you're paying in your 421A program what we're paying in taxes. And that's just, we're talking about taking $35 million out of the coffers of Community District 12 in order to give it a tax abatement for repairs that may or may not be necessary because you just did an inspection prior to purchasing the property. It's just, for me, it's not adding up. But again, maybe I'm not the smartest person in the world, even though I disagree with that assessment. But I just don't see where the tax abatement is necessary in order for you to maintain the repairs, even though HPD says it's okay. That's just where I personally stand, but I'm just one person, and maybe other board members may have another, committee members and or board members may have another perspective. So thank you.
Any further questions? Going once. Any further questions?
I have
Okay. Oh, thank God. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, so my question is, since you want the tax abatement, are you going to upkeep the building better? Because I'm familiar with that, area, those apartments, and it's disgusting how the garbage is always rolling out into the streets. I know management has changed and it's not being upkept the way it should be. So with the abatement, is it going to make it better for you to upkeep the building, or is it better for you not to get it and go up to market rent so that they can have quality living in that area? I'm finished.
We definitely intend on maintaining proper hygiene all over the building, inside and outside. Obviously, it would be a whole lot easier, if the boundaries are clearly marked. Like if DOT puts a sidewalk one day, and it would make our job a whole lot easier. But we definitely intend on maintaining the building up to all the requirements, code, aesthetically. We do take pride of our, of our property. It's like I said, it's been a challenge, but we do intend on, doing everything we can to keep it clean.
We have a question from Ms. Jones from Councilmember Riley's office.
Good evening, everyone. I don't really have a question. I have more of a statement. My name is Simone Jones. I am the Chief of Staff for Councilmember Riley, and I've been listening to the conversation. I just want to reaffirm a few things so that we're all on the same page. We know that with this particular building, not necessarily the management company, we've had a lot of issues in communication. So when they originally came to our office regarding the 421A tax exemption, we wanted to make sure, the council member wanted to make sure that we reiterate what we do here in Community District 12 and Council District 12, and that's build and strengthen relationships. So we definitely recommended them to come and speak to you guys. And as Dr. Burke mentioned, definitely looking forward to the recommendations that you guys have. I would like to say to YMY and Ari, and particularly, I think since you guys came to us and we recommended you to meet with the community board, you guys have been expeditious since then in following up and making some changes. I just want to highlight that I think, in my personal opinion, as chief of staff and also as a resident, we still have a little bit more to do, but I am confident that with what has been done thus far and the communication that has taken place thus far, that we can continue to move forward in a positive light, pending the recommendations of the community board, that is. So I want us to be just a little bit more solution oriented and also see a little bit more from the management company if possible. Your presentation was great. Your slide was great. I just have to be honest that the enthusiasm and the follow-up from me really wasn't there. I want to hear more about what you guys have been finding since you guys put in these cameras. Do we need to have another conversation with our office as council member in terms of the sidewalk issue? Because I don't necessarily want that to be an excuse, right? So as we're having these conversations, I know Dr. Burke and the board are taking their notes and have their recommendations. I also would like the management company, Chuck and Sam and Ari, to also keep those things in the forefront of your mind so that we can follow up and continue that conversation. But I know it's a long night because I've been on the call with you guys all evening. So I just want to say thank you, and thank you, Dr. Burke, for giving me the opportunity to speak, as well as Mr. Carl and George. So have a good night, guys.
Okay, thank you.
Well, let me just say something. Simone, thank you for bringing this to our attention. But I really appreciate the work that you've done in George, and I'm sure you've seen some stuff that he's probably sent your way. So I really appreciate you guys being on top of it and sending it our way. And as I said, and letting us, take a look at it.
Carl, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, first of all, I was not aware that this presentation came about because they was sent to us by the councilman. So it was good to hear that clarification tonight. Also, what I forget her name, but she just said something, and I had posted that question in the chat. I wanted to know if since they started the live monitoring, if they were able to detect if there were any illegal dumping in that area. And also, I just wanted to sort of second Dr. Burke in what he said, because I raised several questions last month, and my opposition to this still stands. And in addition to what Dr. Burke said, I believe last month we heard that they needed to do some repairs, which included, I believe, handrails and also a new roof. And I just don't think that all of this warrants, I think was 30 or 40 years tax, basically tax abatement. And I just don't think that it's worth it.
I agree.
Again, the tax exemption, not just for the repairs, it's to keep the units affordable. So that's why HPD is willing to grant it to us. So,
Are there any further questions? Because it's getting late.
Keisha?
It still hasn't been answered. Ted just asked it. Basically, in our last meeting, what was promised was that there would be plate readers installed, and so now we're hearing that they put in additional cameras, but we still haven't heard were there any findings from those camera readings to address the dumping that has been happening.
If I may, so there has not been any additional dumping since the cameras are up now for almost 3 weeks. There has not been additional dumping. And overall, like I said, there's a major improvement in the appearance. And if I may, I could commit from here, to step up the general cleaning, even though, we feel that if the sidewalk was put in place, and the street was repaired, it would make our job a whole lot easier. But either way, I could definitely come in from here to keep on maintaining, and regardless to the cost, it's obviously a cost that we didn't anticipate, but we have to clean because it's our property, and we do intend on maintaining it properly, as I mentioned.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Being none,
I have,
close this.
Hang on, there's Carl Lanzano.
Yes, Carl.
my question is that abatement an all or nothing, or is a negotiable item?
So all or nothing.
Okay.
Well, I don't, we've negotiated the abatement with the HPD. So I mean, it's up to the council to ultimately approve the amount of the abatement. So.
I think that's why Councilman Riley got involved with this, because he wants to make sure he does it the right vote. Any other questions? Being none, I will close this portion of the meeting at 21:39. And then we will open up Strang Avenue.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Strang, you here?
I don't think we have Strang Avenue. It was just that we just have to discuss when we're going to schedule the
Yes.
the public hearing.
All right, well, let's first, okay. So you don't want to take a vote on any of these tonight?
We don't have to. We have to have a public hearing. So
Okay. Well, Palmer Avenue is not a public hearing, right, George?
no, it
It's
is.
only AD and Furman.
I'm sorry, you're right. Palmer Avenue is not a public hearing, and we're still waiting on a formal written response from HPD on some of the questions that I asked them after our first meeting.
Okay, what I want to tell you, I just want to say something about 3330. I don't particularly think these guys did it, but the 421A was the biggest fiasco that hit this city. It made millions of dollars for developers because they were supposed to give amenities because they got extra floor space and so forth, and they reneged on it. They would put a little sitting park and then they would close it. And that's how they got the tax break. I've seen too many buildings do that. It was a big farce. They got big tax breaks, and it all went into the developers' pockets. But I'm not saying 3330 Palmer did that, but some of the bigger buildings in downtown Brooklyn and in Manhattan were guilty of that. They provided affordable housing for people, but they couldn't come in the front door. They put a side door in so they can go to their apartments. They were not allowed to come through the front door. That's not what 421A is about. Or they couldn't use the amenities in the building, like a swimming pool or whatever else. They were made second-class citizens, and that's one of the things that was bad about 421A. But that's all I have to say on that matter. I think it was enough.
Yeah, the public hearing. When are we going to have the public hearing? At what time?
What we will do, we will have the public hearings prior to the board meeting. And let's start with Furman Avenue at 6 and AD Avenue at 6:30. I know it's going to run over, but I think 6 o'clock, you're not going to get that many people there before 6, because a lot of people, even though they're working from home, it takes them a while to get together. You get on on the internet. If you think we could have enough people there at 5:30, we can start the first one at 5:30.
Just so the board members understand, public hearings require a quorum. So if we start at 6 o'clock, you have to be there at 6 o'clock. And then if we start our full board meeting at 7 o'clock, you still have to be there for that. So that's why I'm saying we could have it a different day, but then that requires the board, all our board members to be together for 2 different days in January.
I think Ursula has a question.
Yeah, Ursula's got her
Right.
hand up.
Yeah, I just want to chime in. That's going to be a long night, guys. We need to
And
do a
that's what I
separate.
was about to say.
That's gonna be,
I don't know about it.
me,
You can't get people out.
That's gonna be too long of a night.
Ursula, you can't get people out for a board meeting. They're going to come out for a second meeting?
Yeah, but I don't want to be to work. I don't want to work all day and then stay at eating until 10, 11, or 12 o'clock. It's almost 10 o'clock now.
I know it is.
Yeah.
And I haven't eaten yet, so I'm getting grumpy.
I'm just saying let me ask this question. I need to look at the calendar and see if I send out a note to the board, Mr. Stricker, the board will come, especially the committee, because the only people that really, let me ask this question, George, we need to have a quorum of the board or a quorum of the committee?
Yes, of the
Of the
board.
board.
Because
The
it's
board.
land use issue that's going before the city council and the borough president.
So in the past, we have always had our public hearings the same day as the board, and we would just do it the first thing. So if our meetings, if we used to meet at 6 or 6:30, we would start at 6:30. So we could start at 7, the public hearing, let that go for, again, and Carl is absolutely right. Like, it might run over. It might not run over. The public meeting might only be 10 minutes because nobody comes and testifies. So that just means, we have to be there. And to Ursula's
And that
point,
has happened already.
yeah, exactly. That has happened before. In my tenure, in the 6 years that I've been there now, we had a meeting and it was, 10 people show up and that's it. And we've had meetings where it's been a little more contentious and you get 3 busloads of people. So, we have to take all that into consideration. So to Ursula's point and to everybody's point, we could do it the full board meeting, which is the 27th. But again, that has to be, we can start at 7 o'clock. We can put time limits on people's testimony. And then whenever that finishes, we can jump right into our full board meeting. And we just have to be cognizant of our time, just like tonight. I mean, it's 9:45 and we're still meeting. So
Yeah, we had a long agenda tonight.
yeah. So again, and the only other thing is for public hearings, this goes out everywhere. So if we agreed this evening that we're meeting on the 27th, then I have to put it in the city planning's website because there's a calendar. We have to schedule the public hearing. We have to create the meeting link. We have, there's a lot of things that we have to do in order to meet, to do all these things. And I've been sitting on this section of my couch for, 3 hours and my backside is getting numb. So, I want to get up and I want to do this. Yeah. So if we're good, we could do 7, we could do 6. It's up to the board members. It really, you decide how you want to do this.
I'm good.
Personally, Chairman, I would start at 6:30.
I think 6:30 is good. I mean, I get you and Ursula. You guys, that it's gonna be a long day for you guys. I mean, AD would have gone sooner. I know I was asking a lot of questions, but a lot of the questions I was asking is for stuff that really didn't make no, again, people are gonna come to us. They got to come to us correct. You know what I'm saying? Not saying that we know everything, but they need to know that we know a little bit of stuff like that. They can come to us and try to pull a fast one and say, "Oh no, it's a quick meeting. It's fast." And then look, 10 o'clock later, we're still here. It's not fair to none of us because, again, we are doing this from the bottom of our hearts. Oh, and by the way, just, this thing that happened yesterday with those people, we could just send a little prayer for them, those people that passed away yesterday. I know this is not the platform for it, but we should have said that from the very beginning. Just a little rest in peace to those people that passed away yesterday.
First of all, Alfredo, no one has problems with the questions that you ask because you said, I mean, look, I'm going to tell you something that I learned in graduate school. And the thing is that you need to make it, you made the perfect point. And, my advisor would always say, if you cannot make it simple, what you do, if you cannot break it down for people who have no idea what you're talking about, then you're not doing a good job. So the fact that you asked those questions, personally, I don't have a problem with it. And I think I would probably speak for most of the board in saying that because you understand it better than most, right? So the fact that you ask those questions, I don't think anybody here is upset because you make a very valid point. The only thing that I'm saying is that we need the information from the questions that you ask so that we can make an informed decision.
Yes.
Period. End of story. So I don't, I reject the notion that because you felt that you asked those questions, we took all the time. I reject that. You ask the questions to get the information so that we can make an informed decision. So on that note, I agree with George. I'm up here watching the national championship game in my home state, even though I'm a Georgia Tech guy, but still. So let's, whatever you guys do is fine by me.
Well, I as the chair of the land use committee, I recommend that we start at 6:30 on the board, the night of the board. Is that everybody else on the land use committee all right with that? If there's anybody else.
Agreed.
George.
6:30? All right. Urs, we have Urs, is that okay?
6:30
Yeah,
is
this
fine.
is Paula. I'm good with that.
30 is good. And just limit.
I want to hear from Urs.
Well, I put it in the chat.
Okay, cool. Urs.
I'll send out city record tomorrow.
All right, so just so everybody understands, I'm going to create the link. We're going to put it on the city planning website. Urs is going to share it with the city record. Once we set it up, we can't change it. So it's 6:30, January 27th, the day of the full board meeting. All right, cool.
Ursula, thank you. I love you.
Love you too.
We're good.
Okay, being no further business before this committee, I ask for a motion to close the meeting.
Motion to close.
Second.
Second, Clinton.
Okay. Meetings effectively closed at 21:49 hours. Thank you, everybody, for attending.
Good night, everyone.
Committee meeting tomorrow.
That counts, George. You're back.